I decided to whip out the iPro today because we're reviewing none other than the infamous Dremel, the ultimate gunsmithing tool, of course. So let's get into this one. Okay, let's get this guy out of the way. That's beyond the scope of today's discussion. We're going to talk about the beautiful, lovely Dremel. This is an 8220 cordless model running on 12-volt batteries. I've had this for probably at least 2 years now, maybe 2.5 years. Basically, once I was starting to get pretty serious with gunsmithing. Let's zoom out a little bit here. I'm basically trying to convince you to spend $100, or probably nowadays $120 to $140 on a rotary tool, and you could spend $10, you could spend $20, you could spend $30. Why should you go with the Dremel? Well, same reason you should buy a Polaris razor when you're getting a side-by-side, because people call everything a razor, even though it's not a razor. Or you should buy a Bobcat skid steer, because everybody calls every skid steer a Bobcat, even if it's not a Bobcat. Everybody calls rotary tools Dremels, even if they're not Dremels. This is the standard. So I believe this model is a little bit outdated. The 8220, I think they're on like the 8240 or something. I don't really know. I don't keep up with it super close. But as you can see, this thing has definitely got a decent amount of use on it for all kinds of different jobs. And I used to use a really cheap little Harbor Freight Dremel that I got in a kit. It was a plug-in one, and I got a coupon with it, and I used my then employee discount. I used to work there, and I literally got it for like $7 with a bunch of tools for it, with a bunch of bits. But eventually I decided to go up to this, and I haven't looked back. First of all, I'm going to say cordless is way better. Not having to deal with a power cord on these things is huge. Being able to go and take my work outside, where I'm going to be sending metal shards or plastic or whatever all over the place, that's a really big boon for me, being able to move this wherever. So let's talk about some of the features of it. So the number one thing I recommend doing as soon as you get your Dremel, take the your little collet here and just put some painter's tape over it. It's very sharp, knurled steel, and it will damage and mar any kind of fine piece you're working on. So that's the number one thing. I've got a little aluminum burr bit here. But so we've got a lock button that, and I'm obviously doing this really quick, one-handed, so I'm not going to be able to demonstrate the whole thing, but you've got a lock button to lock the shank in place. And then we've got a threaded collar that you use as a key to unlock it. You've got power from like 7,000 RPMs all the way up to 35,000 RPMs. Works really, really well. Really, really responsive motor. Believe it's brushless. I actually have no idea if it's brushless or not. I mean, I would imagine it is. Lithium-ion battery. I did also buy a knockoff battery for this, which works just as well. But this came with a battery and charger for $100 back in probably like 2020. I love this thing. It gives me no issues. Very occasionally, now that it's starting to get some serious hours on it, I mean, there's probably like, I would say this probably has 30 hours on it, maybe 40. Very occasionally, I'll have to flip the power on twice because it won't turn on. That's something I honestly kind of see with a lot of tools nowadays. Having to kind of pull the trigger or press the button or whatever, flip the switch twice. So it's not a huge deal, but worth noting that it is happening very, 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 very rarely. The outer shell is held up really nicely, which I really like. You have this very tough rubber here, and then just your good old injected molded plastic. Even your decals have held up relatively well. You do have a clip for hanging, for those of you that like to hang your Dremel. Oh boy, I've literally never used this before. One second. But there's basically two camps of people, those who hang their Dremel and then use one of these bad boys, or who just hold it like an oversized magic marker to do their magic things. But yeah, the clip, I mean, I don't use it at all, but it's there. It's there on most models. It's a pretty basic feature. The batteries do last a long time. I usually will probably get like about an hour to an hour and a half of use out of a battery, which is pretty good for how small these are. They're not compatible with Milwaukee batteries, unfortunately, Milwaukee M12s. The plug-in is the same, but just these little tabs are a different shape. It would be really nice if you could get like a 5 amp hour M12 battery and make this a really stable platform to self-stand. That would be really nice, but it can't happen, and I've never seen a larger battery than these little 3 amp hour ones, but these ones last plenty long. Question number 1, will this make you a gunsmith? No, not even a little bit. I have done a lot of stupid things with this Dremel and caused a lot of damage to some pretty nice guns. And just because I went and spent the extra $100, as well as probably over the last couple years another $200 in bits for it, that does not make me good with it. Just like with a file, or really just like with a gun, you're only going to get good with it by using it a lot and investing a lot in it. I really like this tool. I think this is the cornerstone of the modern amateur gunsmith, and that's kind of why it gets memed so hard. Well, if I have this, I'm a gunsmith, and that's really not true. But if you're a gunsmith that doesn't have a rotary tool, like what are you doing? And I would honestly say that it's worth getting a Dremel over like a Milwaukee or a Harbor Freight one, just because of the pedigree, honestly. And it's not like you're going from like $100 to $400. You're not jumping exponentially in price. I think the Milwaukee one is like $80. These are fantastic tools. I don't know what the warranty is on them. I'm sure they had one though. But yeah, the stuff that you can do with it is really just unparalleled. I mean, this is my main organizational bin. I've got all my brushes here for doing cleaning and quick little minute amounts of polishing, as well as all my stones in here for doing some grinding and some shaping. I've got all my cutting wheels of different types. That's the one thing that nobody can seem to get right, is cutting wheels. Wood cutting wheels they've got figured out with this little quick detach system, but I've never seen the quick detach system used for just like grinding wheels. This system sucks where you screw it in. They always break. The screws always come with. It's just not a good system. I've got all my sanding drums and my flap discs over here. And while I'm at it, the Dremel accessories may seem overpriced. Like this was like $12 or something. They're worth it. I bought like a dozen Amazon sanding drums for $10 and they suck. You can't use them. Dremel accessories are worth it. You've got some whatever grit that is for polishing compound. I've got all my polishing wheels. In here I've got all the buffing compounds I actually use, and I've got them numbered for basically just little dots representing the coarseness of the polish for each wheel. I've got extra sanding drums. I've got some of my smaller brushes. I've got all my cutting wheels. I've got more brushes because I just kept buying brushes because I couldn't find ones I like. But yeah, these are great tools, just to show the versatility of it. Right now, I am working on this Mossberg Maverick 88, and basically we're trying to put this 7.5 inch pump handle on this gun with a 6.5 inch pump slide. So that slides over and it's too long. So I'm basically just going in and just carving out an opening, gouging it out with the aluminum cutter so that we can get this nut to fit down in there. And that's just the most recent thing, but I've also, like, this shotgun, when I restored it, got a lot of work. I'd say about half the time I spent on this brass butt plate was spent polishing it with the Dremel. Some other stuff, like you can do some engraving and whatnot. All kinds of different stuff. It's a great tool. I would say the most worthwhile investment that you can make if you're doing any amount of gunsmithing. Like if you're gunsmithing weekly, if that's where you're at, like you sit down and you do one decent length session of working on your own guns per week, which that's pretty much where I was at when I got this, then it's worth it. And if you're doing anything else, any additional work, all the way up to full time, this is going to be one of the few rotary tools that can handle pretty much a professional workload. Mine has some serious hours on it, and it makes some definitely weird noises and should probably be taken apart and cleaned. Like, that's not a good noise, because it's filthy, because I use it a lot. But, like, I think most other rotary tools by now would have clogged up and just stopped working. I did actually kill my Harbor Freight one, which, no surprise, I got it for under $10. But these are totally worth it. They do not make you a gunsmith automatically. They are a good tool that most gunsmiths use. Yeah, if you have any questions about it, or if you want to see any other tools reviewed, let me know, because I've got lots and lots of tools all over the place. So have a good one, guys.